Hi, Doctor. It's Ed Tyll, and we are live. Dr. Frieda Birnbaum is a research psychologist and psychoanalyst. Her book is What Price Power? An in-depth study of the professional woman in a relationship. How much fun could we have with that topic? Dr. Birnbaum, it's a pleasure to have you today on this topic, really out on the edge. The bit by Lewis is on the edge, but the topic is really edgy. I've been on the air 40 years, talked about this topic, 35 of them. I've had survivors. I've had perpetrators. I've had it all. Catholic, priest, uncles, everything. So soup to nuts. Let's begin with the big picture. Lewis did what I thought all humor is supposed to do. Unleash permission to speak about the unspeakable. Did he do that?
He did absolutely that and more. Because not only did he bring it out, but it was not supported. So the door was closed on this person, this molester twice. He wanted to babysit at the end. That was funny. But you know what? These people are in hiding always, and they're undercover, and they are in our neighborhoods. And once we reveal them, we're able to acknowledge what we need to do about it. So absolutely, if anything, he helped a lot. And I think it was brilliant the way it was done. When you look at things, you know, this is looked at in an analytical sense. Reading between the lines, seeing what's really going on in our lives, and then reinterpreting it in a funny way. What can be better than that? So we can tolerate it and look at it, and we're able to have a dialogue about it in a much easier way. And Saturday Night Live often does these skits that help us to look at life in an easier manner.
Oh, man, thank you. May I extend that to satire on touchy things? Satire can be a way. Lewis's dialogue, are you going to be surprised that not only am I a comedian, but I'm I should say, radio host. I do stand-up comedy. And a couple of comics were all over the Facebook last couple of days because I posted that you would be on.
Oh.
Monday I put up a posting, said, wait till you hear what I'm doing Wednesday at 3 o'clock Eastern with Dr. Friedman. Okay, so this was a build-up. So, of course, the Facebook is the place for this, right? Twitter is all spitballs, I always feel. They love to take shots at things. But if you want to hear people pour out pain and a lengthy, self-centered saga, I think Facebook is the place to do it, all right? So one guy was not at all very sensitive. He goes, give me a break. Lewis did a joke that other comics have been doing for 25 years. That's the oldest hack he's doing. This joke about, here's the guy, walk on the other side of the street, we all know who he is, and then the moral of the story is always, by the way, what would you like me to learn from this, Dad? Don't get molested from the molester who lives 2 doors away. Okay, Dad. So he says that joke has been around forever. So doesn't that also speak to the specialness that Lewis's whack at the wall of ignorance was the final blow that knocked the wall down? This is a wall that humor has been beating on for years, and his blow was the one that, boom, the thing's starting to come down, like Mr. Gorbachev teared down this wall of ignorance. I felt that way. Does that ring true to you at all? With a lot of comedians,
you know, comedy is the truth. Comedy is painful, and comedy is a lot of what happens to a lot of us that we just don't speak about. So this is another thing. Molestation, rape, inequality, whatever's going on around us that we have to really take very seriously and look at and make all the right decisions with. Well, it takes down the wall, as you said, and it helps us to look at it in a much softer way, and we are able to discuss it in a much softer way, and we're able to hear differences of opinions this way as well. So this is something that we should do more of. And what's going on in this world today, we need a lot of comedy. As long as you don't do something that goes ahead and becomes destructive to the innocent person.
Oh, boy. Now, this is where, I don't know, it's going to be touchy because every comedian needs no rules. Woody Allen or the 14-year-old at my open mic. I run an open mic at Broadway Comedy Club, Young Talent, right? They're kids, 18.
Right.
No rules. None. Now, that is tough for you, right? Because they're going to accidentally, which, you know, is a lot of this going on in society, accidentally maybe do damage with a joke. How could a joke on SNL done poorly and done too much rough stuff and not enough ha-ha, how could that hurt somebody?
If it's freedom of speech we're looking to, that's extremely important. We're allowed to have a voice. Often rioting happens because there's no longer the ability to be heard. But when that freedom of speech becomes destructive, when you're doing something to harm someone that should not be harmed, then we have to look and see what that really means. So there's this fine line between telling your own truth and not hurting someone by being destructive, by acting on it.
Now, is that, though, a real... I mean, I agree with you. I want to be clear. But is that a realistic standard? I mean, what words today don't hurt somebody the next day? You get a huge applause, or maybe you get a mediocre reception, whatever. It's an ordinary... You go home, you're the performer, you wake up in the morning, 6,000 tweets on you. You're body shamed. You picked on a gay kid. You used the word faggot, not even the N-word. Now, you know, faggot was around when I was a kid. It did not mean homosexual. It meant you were going to get beat up on the bus because you were a little bit of a sissy. If you were a sissy, they didn't ask your sexual orientation. They punched you out to see if you'd punch back. Now, I know this is rough and horrible, but I grew up in the Bronx. I'm not ashamed of that growing up. I mean, I was afraid on a lot of streets. There were blocks you did not walk down to do your homework with your buddy. You had to walk around the playground. You could not walk along. They were shooting heroin in there. They weren't going to grab you and stick a needle in you, but your parents would never let you walk by heroin. So this is what I'm saying. In that world, is there any possible way to communicate on the comedic and satirical level where you can skate through and really not hurt anybody but do something edgy? I mean, it's a dilemma.
That's a very sensitive question, and it's a very important question. When you look at comedy, it filters that. You're safe. You think that it's something that could be not personal. It's supposed to be funny. So there's a filter there that protects you from taking it further. But when you're listening to something and you have your own personal agenda, you have your own personal experiences, that's when it becomes very difficult and scary. When you're talking to someone one-on-one, you basically know, I would hope, a lot of the time, the person you're talking to. There's a direct awareness of how that person is going to relate to you. Is this person someone who is supportive of the black community? Is this person someone who has racial divide and difficulties? You know how to project appropriately. When you're talking to a crowd, that's when you really have to rethink the message and how the message is presented. Right. So often it's not even the message itself, but it's how it's presented. And we need to know that there are a lot of people out there that are not completely 100% okay mentally as well. And those are the people that are listening. Those are the people that can take guns and kill you and shoot you, as they have in the past with Martin Luther King, who had freedom of speech and said all these wonderful things. And these are the chances we take. So there's a wide array of ways of communicating with people effectively. But then again, when we look at what we're doing, we have to know that there could be cause and problems and difficulties for even anything that you say that could be 100% okay. So it needs to be centered in a very careful manner. But everybody needs a voice. Everybody needs to be heard. Everybody needs to be able to feel that they can make a difference in a way that is effective and not destructive. And that's a very delicate situation.
Our guest is Dr. Frieda Birnbaum, research psychologist and psychiatrist and author. Her book is What Price, Power? An in-depth study of the professional woman in a relationship. And Mike, do you mind one day that we come back on a separate day and do your book?
Whatever you like. I enjoyed talking to you. You make it easy. You're very bright. You're very insightful. So why would I mind that? Absolutely.
Now, guess what? I'm guessing when I say this part. I thank you for that commitment. I'm going to change to another point that I think the audience has been enjoying during our segment. I have a couple of more questions, so this is not the goodbye, but this is kind of the separator.
Sure.
I want to ask an offbeat question. You seem to have a way about you that makes me think of my Aunt Norma a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Well, here's what.
Aunt Norma.
Aunt Norma, my sweet little Aunt Norma in Connecticut, who was my mom's sister and was always there. Here's what happens every time there's a barbecue or there's a cookout and Aunt Norma is there. It's kind of, they also, Aunt Norma, can I just talk to you for 1 minute? They ask her for a minute alone from the festivities. And Aunt Norma loves everything. She's going, yes, what is it, sweetheart? My mom would do this too, but Aunt Norma really was the deep one like you. She knew all the levels that people were at. And she would give counsel kind of like the Pope for a moment. They just wanted a moment with her. Well, thank you, Aunt Norma. And Aunt Norma would say, yes, you're on the right path. No, well, if that's bothering you, you should listen. She had wisdom. And I'm guessing that you get these questions and people who say, Frieda, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you, not the doctor part, but we're shopping. Can I just ask you, you know what I mean, where they want your wisdom. Do you feel this? Do you feel people asking for you to comment on them because you're nearby?
I love it. I love helping people. I love putting myself into their place. Right. And seeing what they need to do for themselves and seeing progress. I've always been that way since I was maybe 13 years old.
I knew it. This is one.
That's
now,
always
I want
been.
to say that you
There's a Yiddish word I want you to know, the Yiddish word. It's called an Altakop. I don't know if you have this.
Oh, I do. I just used it in the punchline.
Is that funny? There you go. It's psychic. We have this mental telepathy going here.
You're using that word now.
Whatever. I haven't thought about it in years, but that's what somebody. So when you ask me about this, I was this way when I was 13 years old. I just loved to help people. Who knows?
It comes out. It emanates. Now, the reason I ask about you and Aunt Norma, et cetera, is I have always imagined on your behalf, like, see, you almost had a colleague in me. When I was in second year of college, I was loving psychology so much, I almost shifted out of law. I was pre-law at St. John's, and I was all about going to...
So was my husband. Go ahead.
So I almost shifted because of my love for psychology. My classes in psych were so compelling. You're going to laugh now. Don't make fun, but this is a true story. I used to take it. We had the same teacher, right, 3 days a week. So he taught our class Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But his Tuesday, Thursday section as a teacher was the same material. Crazy Ed Tyll would take the class twice in 1 week, like going to see a movie twice, because I loved it even more the second time. And so I was almost with you, but you know how life is, circumstances prevail. But I feel that the gift you have, Dr. Birnbaum and others, is to be on the side of another set of eyes. It's a gift to see what your patient, what your person sees, to see their side of it. That's a true gift. I can tell you, for somebody who's a great difficulty finding any method of, can anybody on this planet see what I see? When folks like you, and this Dr. Al-Safram I talk about a great deal, he passed away, but he was the first contact I had with a mental health professional. He was a host on my station. He was very powerful. The community loved him. His phones were full. He had high ratings. And I was a little guy. I was a brand new radio guy, so I marveled at him. This quality of being able to see other people is invaluable, I think. What's your thought on that kind of empathy where you actually see what the other is going through. Can you comment on that?
It's something that's very interesting. It's so easy to do, and it's a no-nonsense approach to life. When you do this yourself and you don't put up with the little stuff, then you're intolerant, and I'm talking about myself, I guess. So when I see somebody, I just had a patient in here this morning. It's interesting. And she came in and she's talking about her sister, who actually, this is going to be on my website, so she's going to hear it, but that's okay. So she's talking about her sister, how her sister is really not doing all the right things. She wants to buy a bigger house, and she's so stressed out, and she should really listen to me because I have the answers, and she starts laughing. So I said to her, are you jealous of your sister? She was so insulted. She was so hurt. But the truth is, in life, you can't afford to go around second guessing. You have to really cut to the chase because everything you do makes a difference. You have to make life happen than rather having it happen to you. So sitting around and waiting for the right moment, well, guess what? That never happens. You have to be able to say, you know what? This is the problem, this is the solution, and this is what I'm going to do now, because things always take over. And it's the big things in our life that often lay dormant. That's not what we look at. And little things, the urgencies that are happening, are the things that sort of take us into a different place and use our energy. So when you are talking about other people's psyche, and where other people are often lost, and the reasons that they're lost, and being victimized, which is no fun because nobody helps you out anyway, it is fun to cut to the chase and take care of the issue at the time. You know, somebody said to me once, I'm like a surgeon with a knife. I get to the root of decay. And I wondered about that, and I was in a support group maybe 30, 40 years ago. I don't remember anymore. And she said that to me, and I didn't realize that I was helping the group because I was always into that mode. But you as well, when you're asking me questions, they're really very insightful and to the point. I guess that's why you are where you are in your life with this show that you have, because you know how to target the issue very much in the same way, because you know what's important and what's not important. I'm not looking to compliment you, by the way. I'm just telling you what it is I see about you.
No, you know, you and I think, have this thing where we look at the world a certain way, and then something happens organically. I very much believe in that there is a science that we've yet to enumerate and account for.
Wow, that's such a powerful statement, and you're so right. And it's, you know, it's a little intimidating because often I will see something in a person, I will think something, and it'll happen. And I tell myself, you know what, Frieda, you better be careful what you're thinking. You better be careful what it is you see in this situation. And there'll be times I'll have the opportunity to shift things around and to help. And there'll be other times I just don't. And these things do happen. So you're talking about a bigger power out there. There's something else going on that in our universe, in our dimension here, that we are not really precisely aware of. And that's something to be looked into absolutely and do research.
I do.
Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that after we speak. I don't have time today, of course.
Right. Listen, I was just going to say, it was not time for dinner the way the world is structured. But yes, here's the reason I say that. Once you're at a level of commitment and focus, and then there's still some kind of unpredictability about it, isn't that what we see in all other areas of life? The storm, the clouds, the temperature. It's always something doing it. These things, it can't come from nowhere. There's no such place as nowhere. Where would nowhere be? I mean, we are everywhere, and they're finding galaxies just like us. Another one came out the other day on the news. They found another place, a whole bunch of planets, absolutely mathematically likely to find some water. Once you find water, we're off and running. It's a beautiful view of the world you bring, and wisdom to me.
Well, you bring wisdom to me. I hate to interrupt you, because as you're talking, I'm thinking that life is about challenges, and that's really the excitement of life, and that's where you get your energy to keep going, to keep producing, to keep finding new things, to investigate.
You got it. Hold on a second. Dr. Sonia Birnbaum is our guest. I just had a call for you, and it dropped off the screen, so I'm dialing
okay.
back on that number because if it's who I think it is, you're going to love this person. He's a regular on the show. He's a very smart guy, and he tried us. Do I have...
Hello.
See, I was just saying how bright and insightful you are. Boy, are you the right one to jump in when this conversation is as fertile as Mesopotamia over here. Ladies,
yeah, this has been a great conversation.
If I may, I want to really give you a proper intro, both to the guests and to listeners. We're all over America. We're all around the world live. Starcom Radio Network is committed to this quality of conversation, this quality of guest. We do not mass produce media. We do not put 17 superficial people on and crowd up your day and give you diminishing returns. We put on rich, focused, important, and relevant conversation, and that's why I introduced my colleague. Jonathan Wolfman is a great listener. He's a great performer. His show is called Passionate Justice, and he is passionate about justice on every level of the human experience, Doctor. I always welcome his questions because he's an educator. He is an essayist. He is a political activist, and the Huffington Post called him a social essayist. What a beautiful term, and he wears it exquisitely. Jonathan, welcome, Dr. Birnbaum. This is Jonathan Wolfman. The two of you should speak to one another as I step back. This is a great meeting on this network. Go right ahead.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Fine. Thank you, Dr. Birnbaum, and thank you for having me on today. I love this conversation because, as the doctor says, there is that fine line, and yet, I said to Ed in an email last night, you know, the kinds of issues that are so horrible, like molestation, that can sometimes, Ed was pointing out the other day on the phone, even lead to child murder. We willfully suppress the conversation, and I honestly believe we do ourselves harm when we do. That's not to say that when you check out at the supermarket line, you should say to the cashier, well, so what do you think about molestation? Obviously not. But it is true that in the history of the world, I mean, all you have to do is go to Shakespeare. Look, it's always and almost exclusively the court jesters, the clowns, the harlequins who get to, and through what? Through humor, to point up what's really wrong in society to who? Not just the audience in the theater, but within the story of the plays, to the royal family. They're the ones who get to say, you know, King, you're not doing it right. You know, King, this needs to be discussed. Murder, incest, people being in other people's beds where they really ought not be. Oh, I'll make a joke about it, and so maybe we can begin a discussion, or at the very least, if we can't discuss it, sire, I'm going to get you to think, and maybe there'll be a little more justice in our kingdom. That's what I think is the role of guys like Louis C.K., all the way back to Lenny Bruce and before him. And the question becomes, if society can't put up with our Louis C.K.'s and our Lennys,
right,
how do we even think we might begin to approach this stuff? Unless we think it's not important to, but I do.
You know, it's just important for everyone to know, the audience to know, that when there's injustice for one, there's injustice for all. And any kind of dialogue, whether it's supposed to be something that is humorous, whether it's supposed to be for a large audience or one person, is extremely important because it could stop something that could be horrendous from continuing. It could open up the eyes of one listener and make a huge difference in the way that direction, the direction that person would be going. So it's extremely essential and crucial for us to continue to have these kind of conversations. And people are really lucky to hear this on the radio. They're lucky to know that there are people that are open to all kinds of possibilities and to be fair-minded and to be able to make changes for everyone. So this is something that's going on in our country. Our country is really in a very revolutionary mode as we're speaking as far as justice, the racial divide, equality, our economics. Everything right now is pretty much going into the wrong direction, and we're hoping to have the right kind of dialogue and conversations from our politicians, from our comedians, on the radio, wherever we can get it. And we're waiting to see what's going to happen in our environment.
Can I break in? I hate to do it. May I ask both of your indulgence? I have the clip from Louis C.K.
Right.
Let's just say I roll it. You guys hear it. We come back after the clip and pick up some specifics. We are so wide open and fertile right now. I'm a stickler, doctor. Everybody knows I'm so annoyingly about what color was that? What was the exact word? What was the dimension of it? What was the context? So let's do some of what Louis said that brought about this great discussion here on the Ed Tyll Show. Starcom Radio Network, AM/FM stations all across America. Let me re-identify how amazing this conversation is, and let me brand it and trademark it and copyright it as Starcom Radio Network is who brings you this. Dr. Birnbaum has said it a couple of times during this dialogue. Jonathan Wolfman says it all the time, and I'm relentless in saying this. It's exciting to do media that is not the same cookie-cutter, repetitious, uninformative, and uninspired roundtable dialogue. Most of our media is some kind of color forms when I was a kid. Take a pink one, take a green one, take a yellow one, take a blue one. Next class, it was horrible for self-expression color forms because you couldn't change what was on there. You only had to pick one head and one hat and one thing. So I'm saying to you, the media has become that. In 1981, the shooting of Ronald Reagan, that day, CNN was still uncertified. When John Hinckley said, Mr. Reagan, and the Secret Service guy took the bullet in the gut, and he's flipping in midair, and then Reagan doesn't know he's hit, and you see that face where they're shoving him in the limo. That's not that long ago. I was well above the age of 21, drinking in bars by the time that happened, and as a 50-something right now in America, feel that there's a very short curve of when we've had some independent media. Early CNN, Ted Turner inspired CNN, was edgy. They weren't handsome. They went for good reporters and not glamour people. And I thought, well, look at us. Man, I am 25, and we got MTV, and we got CNN. We're rocking this world. They're no longer going to hold rock and roll in a cartel, and they're certainly not going to be able to get away with polite talk substituting for the news. Not after Vietnam, not after the Middle East is blowing up. And I'm talking about the original blow-ups like in 68, back in the day, the Six-Day War kind of stuff, that world. I said, well, thank God we've now got an independent news cycle. And what happened on that day that Reagan was shot to CNN? The peer pressure, the reporters at ABC, NBC, and CBS, they had a little mutiny against their bosses. They gave CNN access. That's how it happened. A judge didn't do it. The court didn't do it. The government didn't come to the rescue. And it certainly wasn't the president, whoever he was that day, because he was shot, so he was not in the game. All without, on their own, principled reporters who went to English class and learned how to be good communicators. Then they went to political science class, and they learned who the king of this was in the Ottoman Empire that led to World War I, to World War II, to yada, 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 the Korean, Vietnam, last headline out of ISIS. That's the job. That's what you do. So, unfortunately, that was so attractive to investors, they bought it. They're like, Ted, you got to sell it. Ted, you got to sell it. When I worked in Atlanta, Ted was in charge. 1987, Ted was in the office. And Robert Wussler ran TBS, and we used to go to Hawks games together, and everybody'd sit there. And these were people with passion for what they called their vocation. CNN cost a lot of money. It lost a ton of money. Our network is not losing that kind of money, or Ed Tyll could not champion it. But I believe in championing, I love that verb, if I could say it better, but I love that it's champions of principle, champions of humanity, champions of the universal connections between people always move us forward. Dr. Birnbaum mentioned earlier, we've all been, revisiting this horrible memory in our lives. This Dr. King death. You look at Ferguson and you look at Baltimore and you hear names of people and streets because they were beaten, and you say, good God, did we spend a lifetime committed to this problem and we backslid or stayed flat? You're stunned at that. It's stunning. It's upending. So this is the kind of broadcasting we do. And I'm going to play the clip because this is what I've done for 40 years on the air. I try to get the edgiest thing that I believe will upset people a little bit, in the content being that this is unsettling, but Ed's playing, but then offer them a real vision to see inside of it. This could be extremely helpful to preventing the next whatever crisis of inhumanity we're dealing with. So if it's going to be child molesting on Saturday Night Live, so be it. Saturday Night Live, as Dr. Birnbaum pointed out, that's been the platform for taking the most sensitive and edgy, and the way Lewis delivers it here is perfect.
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
When you do a topic like this, and Dr. Birnbaum pointed out, if there's an expectation of who's telling you a story, you start to adjust. If your foul-mouthed sailor, tobacco-chewing grandfather starts going on a storytelling binge, there's going to be some R-rated language. You don't go, oh, my God, do you know what Grandpa said? I think Grandpa's been talking like that since he was 17. He's 87. Buy him some more tobacco. Let him chew it. Let him spit it. Don't try to remake Grandpa now because you got a little one in front of him. Let the little one figure it out. Nothing as bad's going to happen. It's Grandpa. So this kind of hypersensitivity has pulled the media after it was bought. First they bought it, right? They came in and go, oh, we'll give you 10 times the money. It's really... So all this thing gets bought up, and the first thing people do when they buy something is they would like it to be pleasing to them since they own it. All right, this is not pleasing to anybody when he did it at NBC, and this is why we love him. It is live on Starcom Radio Network, Ed Tyll Show. Our featured guest, Dr. Sonia Birnbaum. Our visiting guest, the great Jonathan Wolfman, essayist, and you hear him on Passionate Justice all the time on the network. This is Louis C.K. on Saturday Night Live. Very nice. Very nice clip. Very nice. I thought the delivery of the bit was good also. For my 2 cents as a comedian, here we go.
Check. To give birth to twins. When a lot of people are beginning to think about retiring, she's starting a new full-time job.
That's not it says Louis C.K. What are you doing, Barbara Walters? Hold on. Is there anybody in the control room? Hello, that's Barbara Walters. It didn't sound like Louis C.K. Shall we start the clip again? It says, you took the wrong, got it. Thanks. Yes. Oh, you know what? Recovery is the most exciting side of the baseball. This should be the right clip, and you are still an intern. And it looks like you're going to keep your internship if this starts. It all hinges on whether this clip begins, because it's titled correctly, but frankly, the clip hasn't begun. There it is. Wow, so now there's an ad on the clip. That's okay. Next time, how long have you been here? 3 weeks? How long have we had this network? 3 weeks. You got it. You're going to learn a lot real fast. Okay, this ought to be it finally. Here we go.
So, I'm not racist. However, I do have on his face that I become mildly racist, and this is what I think. That's fine. Everything's fine. Nothing's going to happen. No, of course I'm fine. Why did I even think that for a second? In the 70s, there was a child molester that lived in my hometown. And it wasn't a big deal. It was like, we call it a child molester. It was just like, yeah, that's the house where the child molester lives. Hey, kids, don't be stupid. You'll get molested.
All right. Wow. That was a little tough on the production side. I apologize to everybody, but we got it out. The first thing, it jumps out at you, Dr. Friedman. And I got to believe, pardon me, Dr. Birnbaum, Dr. Frieda, it's driving me nuts. People flipped out when he goes, it's no big thing. Right there. The premise is an affront to some people from the get-go. Let's talk about why that's important, to come out and he just says it.
Because that's how people really feel. And he's helping them with their own, some of his laughter is just releasing anxiety in itself. And he's helping people to feel freer, to be able to express themselves. So here we go. They're thinking this, and he's saying it for them. And therefore, it's going to be something that they can discuss after the fact with other people and become more aware of. And we're not only talking about molestation, we're talking about being open to the events of our lives. Because only then can we make changes and can we move forward. And can we ask the right questions? Because really that's what makes our country special, because we're able to make these kind of shifts without feeling persecuted in some way, and hopefully emotionally as well.
Boy, what a great connection. Jonathan, I want to flip that to you. You do, in your last Passionate Justice episode that I heard last evening, you did mention the concept that I think was suggested by Dr. Frieda. There can be handcuffs on you pre-existing when the issue emerges in life. If you're not free as an American to really figure out your destiny, you're going to be stuck in the two choices that come with your religious and cultural overwhelming existential living. Every day everybody's got an automatic answer. You could be trapped in there, at least in America. You are free to find a fix. Isn't that interesting that religion could restrict you and keep you trapped in an injury rather than be your ticket out and your solution?
Absolutely interesting, and I would say even more so, what Louis C.K. does there by saying, well, we all knew the guy, he was there. What he's doing, I think, is he's signaling the immediate and larger audiences that this is okay to talk about, because what he's doing is saying, look, we all have a familiarity with horrors in our own neighborhood that we have heretofore been very, very reticent to talk about, but we all know it. That's why he said it. You know what the objection was, I think? Doctor, you'll tell me if you agree. Ed, you'll tell me too. I think it was the manner in which he delivered that line was brilliant, because it was so almost offhanded. He was being a huckfin. And he was saying, you know who we had in our neighborhood? We had Joe the milkman, we had the barber, we had the mailman, and we had Chester the child molester. And then we had the guy who tried for AA baseball. And what he's doing is he's saying it's so normal to have, but I'm going to make a contradiction here. He's saying that
all right, but hold
the aberration.
Jonathan, let me do this.
The aberration is not
Jonathan,
that it's normal.
Jonathan, do you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
I want to separate that out for the poor doctor. I mean, she doesn't have a notebook. So let's go slow. Let's go slow.
I'm sorry.
By the way, if I may, to anybody who calls in, please try to remember the guest is the centerpiece. These questions have to be set up so as a question clearly, so she can crush it like a big Major League Baseball player and not know that it's cricket. So slowly, just pull out a bite-sized first piece and let's get an answer, and then we can go through. Everything you said was brilliant. It's just that I want to separate it out so the doctor can really answer. What was your first point, Jonathan?
Well, okay, I think the overall point is simple, and it's this. What Louis C.K. did in such an offhanded way is he approaches horror in a way that makes it routine and therefore easy for people to talk about.
There you go. Have at it. Dr. Frieda,
absolutely, and that's exactly right, because it's relevant. It's not acceptable, but when it is something that we can be aware of, just like we're aware of the postman and the delivery man or whatever, the milk truck that's coming down the road, that's part of it, but we also have to know how to respond to each situation differently. So this child molester down the street, who could have a tendency to still have this illness inside him, what do we say to our children? How do we acknowledge him in a way that doesn't put fear into them, but also helps them to know that this is somebody that they have to treat differently, that this is somebody that they have to make certain rules with, different than other people, so they're not in the dark. We're talking about many issues. Go ahead.
May I, Doctor? I got to grab that point. That is the last thing you said about people must learn that they must treat certain people certain ways. That is a very wobbly cornerstone of an organized civilization. What happens if we lose that ability? I feel it is in jeopardy, and you just said it as beautifully and succinctly as could be understood. Why? Why is that dislodging? Why must we adjust our behavior because of who someone else is? It's critical in a multitasking, complex society that is trying to elevate mankind. That must be accomplished. Would you explain why it's urgent?
It's urgent because the more you are evolved, the more you are aware of others' needs, and then you can go ahead and be appropriate to each and every situation. When you're talking to someone who is a survivor, you're talking to someone who has gone through a lot, there's a way of dealing with that person that's different than somebody else who's not sensitive to the same issues. So each time we can do that and connect to each other, well, guess what? There won't be murders. There won't be conflict. We'll hear each other. When people are wanting to be heard and they're not, there is problems. They're going to do something awful because they're not identified for who they really are. So this is right. You're absolutely right. It's not just talking about molestation. We're talking about being able to do the right thing by letting other people know information in a way that's tailored to that situation. We can't treat everyone in the similar manner. And when you do that, when you talk to someone whose son was killed because he was black and riding a bicycle, in the media, that person is hurt. That person is not celebrating Mother's Day or whatever. And you have to think of that. And as a country, we haven't gotten to that point yet. When we are taking into consideration Father's Day, we have to think of everyone. Who are the people who lost their children? Who are the people that are hurting? So when you talk to groups, you talk to individuals, you do have to tailor that to that person. As children, it's much more difficult. Children trust everybody, and that's wonderful.
Can I get in on this one, that
yes.
Children trust everyone? And Jonathan, I'm going to thank you, buddy. You got a great show, great question, and Passionate Justice you should hear every Saturday at 3 p.m., and then it's always being replayed because it's an amazing episode here on Starcom Radio Network. The children who have this kind of visit, I'm going to describe to you. Okay, we're not going to be graphic. We're really not going to be embarrassing to anyone, but I'm not going to let this go unreported, okay? You have a 11-year-old altar boy on a 3 altar boy outing with the local priest who is in charge of altar boys. And what they've done is they've done a lot of these weddings. and funerals, which you have to volunteer your playtime outside of school. So as a reward for doing all these extra events, they're all being taken for a movie, a dinner at a place. In the old days, it would be similar to one of these Chili's, you know, a little franchise. And then they're going to, exciting, stay over at the condominium of the priest's mother as an exciting by-the-ocean visit, home by noon to our parents the next day at 12. What do you think every parent in the neighborhood thought of that idea?
As a parent, I would be a little bit concerned. And here we go. This is authority figures, teachers, priests, people out there that you really feel have your best interest at heart.
Of course,
and,
right? Best interest and the Lord. I mean, it's got all
that's
the
right.
reverence of safety. It couldn't be more safe if you were the priest.
You think so anyway. You would think it couldn't be more safe.
Well, here's what happens.
The reality is something a whole different,
Correct.
Set of rules.
Now, they think they're having the time of their lives, these kids.
Yes.
They've gone to the movies. They've been telling jokes. They've got up to watch TV. They stayed up to Johnny Carson's monologue. Now they're in bed. And the bedding arrangement is there's 2 single beds in a bedroom, and there is a fold-out, what they used to call a Castro convertible.
This is a true story?
Oh, indeed.
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm listening. Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
It happens in by the way, I was talking earlier today about Rockaway, New Jersey. This takes place in Far Rockaway, New York.
Okay.
Bronx is the parish where the kids come from.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw the movie Sleepers, it's in that era.
I see.
It's in the era of Sleepers. Not that specific neighborhood, but that year's bracket in that era. So now the kids, like I said, they go to bed. They think this is the greatest thing ever. In the middle of the night, one of them is awakened by an attempt to molest. That's all you need to know. I mean, I'm not going to give up the kid's private horror. The kid is awakened. And it's very specific because it's on a part of his body that should never be touched. It's being touched. That's what awakens the kid. This kid panics from realizing what's going on and realizes, they say, the only way out is to fake waking up slowly. Maybe he'll stop if he thinks he's going to be discovered. It's very savvy for a 10, 11-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
But he does it, and it works. It works. The kid starts going, The guy jumps off him, goes to the other end of the room, and plops in a Barca lounger. Now the kid's terrified. He doesn't know if the priest went to get a knife or something, he's going to get stabbed. He doesn't know it's in the dark. He's got his eyes closed. So the kid gets up out of bed and goes to the bathroom. And it realizes what's been going on. Underpants are pulled down. He didn't touch them. Says to himself, maybe I should run to the hallway and start screaming for the cops. And even if he kills the other 2, I'll get away. Very dramatic. He didn't do any of this. Goes back to bed and says, I'll stay awake because he's faking, the molester is faking sleep right now. He was just trying to have sex, and all of a sudden he's snoring. So I get it. He got caught. He thinks, so I'm going to play along and just get the hell out of this in the morning, but I'm staying awake. And that's what the kid does. Stays awake. Now, was sex performed on him? Yeah, what are you going to, of course, when you get touched, that's some kind of assault. Was it an actual rape? You don't know it. You can't, how much are you going to ask a kid? The kid tells you what he tells you. That's what the kid said. Now, my question is, what is the right way? It's kind of like they did to Jeb Bush the other day. Now, knowing what we know now, in post-Louis C.K. America, what could we hope this kid would do? What's the right thing? We would cross our fingers, because it's always a sneak attack. You never know what the first, nobody had any way to know. What should happen now in 2015 different than 1968, do you think?
Well, first of all, that's why it's so important for our children to know how to protect themselves, that they're not guilty, that they didn't do anything to make this happen, because post-traumatic stress often occurs after these incidences, and they keep reoccurring in their sleep and in their experiences and in their relationships. So that's one thing. If you can tell a child, listen, if things happen, you go and report it to someone. If there's no one around, you try to see if there's a phone nearby. Because today all the kids have cell phones. I'm sorry to say, but that seems to be the case.
Good for you. Good for you. Now, may I say that
yes.
there is a fact relevant to that point in the episode.
That was a long time. That was Johnny Carson. Kids didn't have, because you mentioned Johnny Carson.
Correct.
Kids did not have cell phones then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what was said about why tell or not tell authorities. In other words, everybody wonders after the story, geez, the next day, did the cops come marching in? Did the parents vex over this? Was the kid doubted? You know, we've all seen examples of what can happen after somebody tries to come forward. So you wonder, well, what did happen here? Here's the answer. The kid says, my father would have killed him. And I didn't want on my conscience that my dad would kill him. Forget cops. My father gets one breath of this. He walks into the rectory and he kills him. And my dad will go to jail. And my dad is probably doing the right thing. In other words, the kid says, I understand why my dad would want to kill him. I understand why a working class, Bronx dad, an urban, what do you think an urban dad's going to do? The priest did what to you? Goodbye. Goodbye, priest. And that's always the guy who says, Your Honor, I'm sorry I killed him, but what do you want me to do? I grew up, I had no education, this is my one kid, and this guy prayed. Now, so you had that answer. But listen to this next one. Listen to this fact from the kid. Kid says this, I talked in confession to this exact priest about the beginning of my coming of age. As a Catholic, the kid was taught that's a sin to come of age, adolescent sexuality. So the kid's confessing, I'm violating the impure thoughts commandment. Now, could you believe it, Dr. Frieda? I know it was staggering to me that a priest would use the confessional, use the sixth commandment to get him the boys who are already finding their body parts, and that's who he goes after because he knows they feel guilty about it.
This is much deeper than anything we're discussing right now. And that is the fact that, sexual relationships, that's part of life. And it's a healthy part of life. It's natural. Often when you don't have that kind of relationship, whether you are in a situation where it's religious, that you don't get married, or maybe possibly your sexual orientation is different, it's not heterosexual. But whatever the situation is, sublimating it and ruining other children's lives are something that people go to this place that is abusive. You could call it rape at times. You could call it a criminal act at times. But it goes to that extent because of the underlying theme that these people have issues that are not being resolved. Now, putting that aside, I'm not making excuses. I mean, if somebody kills somebody, they killed somebody, even if they had a horrible mother. That's what they did. We look at a situation here where putting yourself at risk is something you have to be very careful about. And it is extremely important to know that in our culture today, we can't trust. We're living in a different time. We can't put information on Facebook, or we can't allow our sons to go camping without knowing everybody's history, exactly who they are, what's going on, or possibly even going with them. We really need to overprotect ourselves. So now we're talking about after the fact. What does one do? So as I said before, the most important thing is to tell your child that, listen, if anyone touches you in any way that shouldn't be, that's personal, you don't allow it to happen. You make sure that you either walk away from it, you go to somebody, another adult, because this is wrong. The other part of it is, what happens when this child is in a situation that they can't do this? There's no one else to go to. there aren't any phones to call. Well, then that child has to be able to know that he has a right to stop it on his own or her own. But the child needs to be empowered and to not feel, because the biggest thing that these molesters do is tell the child, look, if you tell anybody, I'll tell them it was your fault. I'll tell them that you're the one that did this. So we need to be able to give the right set of rules. It is rampant around us. I mean, these teachers, females as well, not only males.
I was going to say, it is a predator behavior, and it's only from research and deep, deep study that we're going to unpack it to the satisfaction that everybody understands it. I don't know how long it takes to get there, but certainly what you said, in my opinion, and this is not to flatter you, okay, because I don't flatter all guests, and I don't get
okay. I'll forgive you.
But thank you. You pardon me if I say that analysis was the leading edge of American broadcasting. I think you go to CNN, you go anywhere, you're not going to find what you just gave us. I gave you a hot potato, didn't I? I didn't give you no easy one, did I?
No, and it's very painful when you think about innocent kids who are coming of age and their sexuality and how their relationships will be affected in the future. So this is something that we really do need to protect, and we do need to have our children grow up quicker than we want them to by talking about it. It's the only way. You know what's really interesting? We talk about talking to our children. When you talk about nothing, the small stuff, that's how you start communicating, because then you develop trust with one another. So when important issues come up, then they're more comfortable speaking to you. So always, whether you're in the car or whether you're doing something in the kitchen, cooking or whatever it is, talk about anything just to have a level of comfort with your child. So when the real issues come along, your child will present them to you rather than to someone else or a peer who is also uninformed as they are. So that's extremely important for the viewers to hear.
Indeed.
What am I saying, viewers? Listeners. Maybe they're viewing me, I don't know.
I'll tell you what, we are video streaming as well.
Oh.
You now do have people watching the program. They see my studio, and they see me speaking to you. They don't see you live at your location.
That's a good thing, because right now, what am I doing? I'm standing, and
I see. How's the weather?
I'm looking at myself
outside the window. What is outside the window?
Well, I'm in New Jersey, so it is in the 70s. It's beautiful. This is my favorite temperature, like San Diego, 72, 74. I love it. The sun is out. I have my office here in Saddle River, which is a gorgeous place to be.
Oh, I love Saddle River.
Yeah, not a bad deal.
You have an office in Saddle River.
Yes, I do.
I'm coming in one day.
Anytime. I'd love to meet you.
I'm going to come in. I'm going to be in the lobby. You can say, who's that gentleman in the lobby? He says he's at Tyll. He says he had a wonderful interview with you, but he's enjoying the lobby. Ed Tyll loves lobbies.
We could talk. We could have a lot to talk about. There's so much out there, and there's so much possibilities in life. You know, and it's interesting because I've always asked questions, and questions give you the answers. If you keep asking questions, there's so much to discover out there, and that's what you present. Even the way you want to know, you want information, but you ask it in such a way that you make it very open and flexible to go in any direction. So wherever the mind leads you, you can answer. As you said in the beginning, there are no stiff answers. You know, what's interesting, when I'm in the media, I go on TV as a psychologist or whatever, I'm told, just don't talk a lot. Give just some bullet points, and that's it. Don't give it away. And my publicist just said to me this morning, he said, listen, it's like getting married. No, like dating. I'm sorry, like dating. When you go out the first date, you don't want to give it away. You want to have some allure to you. I said, oh, okay. So when you get on the media, don't give them all that information. I'm thinking, all right. So just give them a few points. But you're different. You want to hear. You want to talk. You want to get
it up like a sponge. I soak it up like a sponge.
That's right.
I find you so valuable in this dialogue. That's why I stepped it up with that story, honestly. I was inspired by Jonathan's dialogue with you. I said, I'm going to go there, and I knew you. See, that's what I was trying to say earlier. Now I know I was right. The impression I had is that you are trustworthy with even the most catastrophic. I really think people would say, you know what, I could talk to Dr. Frieda. Or in personal life, I'll talk to Frieda. I'll just wait till I bump into Frieda. Because I really think you have this amazing strength. And then you're so soft-spoken and easy and accessible to understand. So you look at the clock. It's an hour, 5 minutes.
When 5 minutes, it felt like
I can't let it go of you, but I have to.
Well, I love you, too.
Will you come back?
I feel it. That's what's important.
You do.
And I wish you the best of everything. You should enjoy this season. It's a time to have fun and to play and to enjoy your life. That's where you always put yourself on the path. Get off the path. As long as you have a healthy place to be, you'll be fine. And you're wonderful with the way you ask, and you're wonderful with the way you make me feel, because you were not talking to the psychologist. You're talking to Frieda, not to the doctor. And that's what made it fun.
That is what made it special. You
Yes.
got Frieda.
Be well.
This is going to be a relationship on air that all of America
forever
is going to. That's right. That's right. You know what? I'm in. Because right now, this episode that you and I just completed, right? We're live. We're still speaking live. I shouldn't use the word episode. But as soon as we conclude, that same intern that was bungling before now is going to grab it and turn it into one of these little audio files, right? Mm-hmm. And then we send it all over the web. Then, here at the network, you and I will be replayed 12 times in the next 7 days, because I'm programming us 24/7, 7 days a week, in this free form. Think as big as you want. Speak up as clearly as you need to. And then I tell them, laugh loud. Think big, speak up, and laugh loud. How's that sound?
I'm shaking my head. You can't see me, but I'm shaking my head up and down because you're wonderful. And there's so many hot topics to talk about that you are somebody that really should be listened to across the country, which you are, because you really stand out. You're going to get my award. You're going to get my award in the mail or something. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. Well, that's it. You make me. Here's the thing, right? We'll trade. What? You make me your favorite Starcom interviewer, and then I have already named you the official psychologist and mental health director of the network, and hence the nation. We don't have a Surgeon General for psychology. We don't have a Surgeon General to help us cope. You're my nominee, and you've already served your first term. You gave us an hour of you, and we are an embarrassment of riches from this interview.
You made my summer, and this is wonderful. They offered me some show here. I think this is even better. I don't know what kind of show, but they're in the midst of doing something about my future here. But anyway, you're the best.
You are. You are going to do so much more together, and I'm taking your advice. I am going to be joyful on this spring day for what we get every year, once a year at this time. It is a gift.
It's a gift, and grab it and use it. You're fortunate to have it.
I shall. Okay. My leader, my fearless leader, my psychology guru. This is so fun. All right, let's do your website slow. So
it's okay. It's just Dr. Frieda, DOCTOR Frieda. That's it. .com.
Really?
Yeah, that's the whole deal.
Dr. Frieda.
Yeah.
Sweet. DOCTORFREDA. Oh my God! So Ed is your name. Ed is in the middle of your name.
That's right.
Wait a second.
It's meant to be.
Do you remember Aunt Norma that I mentioned earlier?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Her neighbor is Frieda Hupsch.
Wow.
Frieda Hupsch. Bill and Frieda Hupsch used to come over to Aunt Norma's every time we came up for company. Let us know if the Tills are coming. And they go, hello. And they would say hello to each other. But Frieda and my mom and Aunt Norma were the smartest 3 women on planet Earth. None of these girls were like, I don't really know. They knew everything. They spelled it. You know, they had college degrees, Frieda. They had college degrees in the 40s from Hunter in New York, right there off the subway. So thank you. Thank you for being...
You bring out the best, that's for sure, and you're very talented, and I really do appreciate the way you interview, your insight, and your wisdom, because you really have it. You are a delight, and people are fortunate to be able to take advantage of hearing you. So
Bless
you should really be, I wasn't kidding when I said an award-winning interviewer, because you definitely are around the country. So I wish you the best, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you again. I'm going to let you go,
Dr. Frieda.
because we have to say goodbye sometime.
The way it sounds, DOCTORFRIEDA.
Love you. You're the best.
Say one more time.
Be well.
Say one more time right now. Right now, I'm ready to start a brand new interview with our good friend, Dr. Frieda, who lets me call her Frieda.
Absolutely. That's the only way.